to yield to the gentlelady from the U.S. Virgin Islands, who has come with the expertise of a renowned and trained lawyer, one who is a collaborator, and I'm delighted to yield to her for a period of 3 minutes, the Honorable Congresswoman Plaskett. Thank you.
Thank you so much to my colleague Sheila Jackson Lee. I want to thank you, the Congressional Black Caucus, for the Special Order Hour. A special tribute to the lives and legacy of Representative Louis Stokes, Amelia Boynton Robinson, and Julian Bond. Thank you, Ms. Jackson Lee, for your work here in Congress, your tireless efforts to raise awareness to issues which many Americans may have forgotten or not given thought to. Thank you for your mentorship to us younger members here and your tireless efforts to support not only the people of Houston, but to the people of America. Thank you for allowing us this most important opportunity to pay tribute to these remarkable individuals. Mr. Speaker, today we gather in reverence and in solemn reflection to honor the lives and legacy of some exceptional people, some exceptional Americans who we have lost in these recent months. These were civil rights activists, statesmen and women, trailblazers, members of a great generation of individuals who gave so much of themselves to the civil rights movement and to the advancement of minorities in our country. They are former Congressman Louis Stokes, former chairman of the NAACP and Georgia State Senator Julian Bond, and civil rights icon Mrs. Amelia Boynton Robinson. A centenarian, Mrs. Robinson's 110 years of life, that in itself is a great honor, was dedicated to education, fighting state-sanctioned discriminatory practices against African Americans, and voter disenfranchisement. One can make the argument that her role in Selma's civil rights demonstrations, including the infamous March on Bloody Sunday, where she was beaten unconscious by state police, paved the way through the subsequent passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 for both Congressman Stokes and State Representative Bond to serve in elected office. As the first African American elected to Congress from the state of Ohio, Congressman Stokes was a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus and spent his 30-year career in Congress advocating issues of importance to Ohioans and to African Americans across the country. Julian Bond, that great statesman from Georgia, was one of 11 African Americans elected to the Georgia House of Representatives after the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Bond served 20 years in both legislative chambers in the state of Georgia and served as the first president of the Southern Poverty Law Center. He also served as chairman of the NAACP. These individuals have impacted the lives of so many African Americans and have undoubtedly advanced the rights and interests of minorities in both our states and nation's government. Similarly, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize two individuals from my own home district of the Virgin Islands who, like Congressman Stokes, Julian Bond, and Amelia Robinson, have changed the landscape of the Virgin Islands through their advocacy and education. Former Judge and Lieutenant Governor of the Virgin Islands, the late Julio Brady, who, like Julian Bond and Congressman Stokes, used his training as an attorney. As a U.S. attorney, judge, attorney general, Judge Brady fought to remove barriers of injustice and was laid to rest this week. And like Congresswoman Stokes and Amelia Robinson, Judge Brady's legacy of service will carry on. Ursula Krigger was also a centenarian who passed away this year, like Amelia Robinson, and at age 113 was the oldest living Virgin Islander until her passing this month. She was a griot, an educator whose longevity afforded a unique perspective of witnessing the modern advancement of our territory. The lives and legacies of these individuals are etched in the annals of our history, and their impact forever ingrained in the minds and hearts of the many lives they touch. I am a better person, and indeed we are a better nation through the work of these individuals. I've listened to my colleagues tonight speak about Representative Louis Stokes, Amelia Boynton Robinson, and Julian Bond, and the personal impact these individuals had on the work of my colleagues, whom they served and known them personally. Understand that while many like myself may not have had the great honor and pleasure of toiling and working with them shoulder to shoulder in the struggle for civil rights, in the advancement of minorities in our country, Americans like myself understand and appreciate their sacrifice. And we understand the work that must still be done and will continue their legacy here today and in Congress in the future. Thank you so much, Congressional Black Caucus, for this time. And thank you again to my colleague, Sheila Jackson Lee, for the time that I've been afforded to speak on these great Americans. And I yield the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker, and good night.
Congressman Plaskett, thank you so very much for laying the groundwork for those who now step into those footsteps, and you have done so with such leadership and certainly such a passion. Thank you so very much. Mr. Speaker, what is our time remaining?
The gentlelady has 2 minutes remaining.
I thank you. Let me conclude by thanking the chairman of the Congressional